Andrew.
A few years ago.
Linfoot?
Yeah, Linfoot.
Awesome. Yeah, he texted me. Great to meet you.
So we are building this tech company and
we're working on a project with you right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what we have done in the last few months, that we have established a company where everyone works 12 hours a day.
That's
and,
good.
you know, by willingness. So we are a big fan of culture and VaynerMedia, especially Andrew.
Yes.
So we were trying to establish similar, culture at our
Yes.
company. So once we are scaling now, when we are 10 people or below, it's easier to maintain that. But what tips would you give to maintain that when you scale?
I am fascinated by people not accepting that shit changes. There's nobody here who's the same person today that they were 4 years ago.
Yep.
So just because our culture at VaynerMedia was one way, when my employees say, we used to be like this, or old Vayner, or the Vayner way, or the way we used to do it, I get very upset. I go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you were 3 years ago, it matters who you are right now. So you have something at 10, and you have something different at 30, and you have something different at 60, and you have something different at 600. I can tell you so many things are different at Vayner at 750 than it was at 30. But at the end of the day, as long as the CEO is still operating, there'll still be a lot of truth, right? Like, think about your parents. Things have changed, but there's still a lot of core things that are always gonna be there. And so I wouldn't get crippled by people leaving earlier, a little more politics, B players, C players instead of all A players. All of it's gonna be true. I think you need to be empathetic as an operator, that things are always gonna change, and not be crippled by that. And remember, back to the first piece of advice, you're in control. If you wake up in 3 years from now and you don't like it, change it. But to be romantic about it just, you won't be able to hold on to it.
Hey Gary, over here, man. Hey, how's
man.
it going? Welcome to the con. So from
Thanks,
Florida, friends with Justin Giagrande. I know you've worked
Yes,
with him
he's throwing a
closely.
big party right now in LA.
He always throws parties. I used to
True.
go to school with him. Anyways, Evan Tate just moved to Hong Kong
Here.
2.5 years. Just moved to Hong Kong 2.5 years ago to learn the China game. I was wondering, what is your take on China power tech organizations like Alibaba and Tencent? I know you've looked at Australia and APAC, and then after that, on your road to owning the Jets, what are you looking at in the next 5 to 10 years, given your limited bandwidth?
So I think one of the best things I've done in the last couple years, especially the last 4 or 5, is I don't talk a lot about shit that I don't know. So my intuition is more than half this crowd knows more about the Chinese tech ecosystem than I do. I know it from afar. I do think I have some weird advantages of being born in a Soviet communist country, so there's some cultural things I understand inherently about privacy or being accustomed to the big brother of a government. Look, these are very aggressive, very large corporations that are dominating the Chinese consumer market. And I think one thing that the Chinese internet companies have done a really good job of is conditioning the consumer to pay. I think one of the great weaknesses of a lot of US-based tech companies is they do a lot of things for free because they're very venture capital based, raise more capital, go public, rely on advertising and venture capital instead of end consumer transactions. So I admire a lot of the things that the big Chinese companies have done. Plus they own the full stack, right? It's advertising, it's retail. In the US, you have Facebook and Google and Amazon and Apple. Here in mainland China, you don't as much. What I'm fascinated by is China's so ridiculously big as a market, much like Americans never think outside of China. I'm fascinated to see what happens in 30 years. Like, there's literally no reason for Chinese-based entrepreneurs to think about anything outside of China. It's more than big enough of a market. And I think for me, this is a very exciting week for me. This is, I've been waiting and thinking about how and why and what I would do in Asia. How would I go about it? What have I been doing? So for me, like, even looking at things like Indonesia as how big of a market is, things of that nature, I think that they're incredibly well run with extremely real entrepreneurs at the head of them. I'm just genuinely impressed. I do think that, for example, WeChat and things of that nature struggle to scale in other parts of the world, and it's exciting for me to see what and if they scale outside. As far as the Jets thing, like the next 5 or 10 years, right now I'm in a very interesting time in my career. I want to build this machine of people and thesis and infrastructure and culture and even Andrew, who worked for me, now is here, and scale, kind of like McKinsey. I'm very fascinated by the people that come through my machine and go out into the world.
Wow.
My intuition is I will have 100 incredibly special people, 50 of which I keep for my whole career, 50 of which go out and do incredibly interesting stuff, and the transactions between me and those 100 people will more than put me in a position to achieve what I want to.
Love it, man.
Love it.
Fins up there.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
My name is Ephraim. I'm Turkish, but I live in Shanghai. And I'm the founder of Expat Neighbors. I'm the solo founder, and our people, we have 4,000 people. And we basically trigger neighborhood spread in Shanghai because we believe that when you're abroad, your neighborhood connections are one of the strongest form of information,
100%.
especially when you're in China and you cannot speak the language. And if you do, then there are characters. So I want to ask you, we're after angel investor right now. But most of the Chinese investors are asking us about monetization and profit. If they can't get that in a year or even like 6 months, they're not interested. So in terms of that, and I know that you call yourself, or people know that you're an angel investor, what are you looking for in a startup, and especially startup that is founded by a solo founder?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a solo founder is scary or the thought of a solo founder versus co-founders literally is a zero factor in how I think about businesses. I think that, let me tell you a really good piece of advice about VCs. When they tell you that they want you to monetize in the next year, that is their excuse to say no. Because I promise you, if you sat down with me now for a cup of tea and showed me the VCs that said no, and we went on their website, I would show you hundreds of companies they invested in where there was no expectation of monetization in the first, year. I think the biggest thing, and it's going to continue to be the theme here, if VCs don't want to give you money, go find somebody rich. Like, to me, like, being romantic about who gives you the money when you need the money is a bad strategy. So for me, you need to work backwards from what you need. You've decided you need dollars. I would go, for example, I was raising a fund last year. 3/4 of the way I decided I wasn't going to do it, and I gave all the money back. But it was interesting. With all the accolades that I have and all the accomplishments, there was no hardcore traditional family offices that wanted to give me money at all. Because they like, Goldman Sachs background. They're conservative, and I'm not. And so I didn't sit there and try to convince family offices to give me money. I just went to crazy billionaires who looked at me and said, oh, you're like me, I love you, here's $10 million. So I think you need to be smart and know that you don't need a big time VC. Like, nobody knows. Like, go survey people on who the VCs are behind some of the most successful. They don't know. Like, it means nothing. You don't need an A-list VCs funding you. You need money. And so I would start looking at every single angle. Third generation wealthy kid who sucks, who wants to pretend they're an investor. Like, you should not be romantic. So to me, it makes me laugh that you bring up the solo entrepreneur thing, because I'm thinking to myself, who said that to her? Yeah, I mean, like, fuck them. They're wrong.
And the whole intellectual property will vanish. And I'm like,
if a car hit Mark Zuckerberg, they'd be fucked. And I don't care what Cheryl would do. If a car hit Jeff Bezos, they would be fucked. Like that is literally their excuse because they didn't believe in you. Period.
Well, 10,000 people believe, but I still need money. So thank you so much.
10,000 people believe in your product. You need to find the human beings that believe in you. Got it?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so-
Wow.
You know what the good news is?
Embrace
There's
that.
a lot of them. Especially if you decide not to go down the cookie cutter box of I need a venture. Our whole ecosystem is so fucking broken. Like the way we think about things in our world today is broken. Like, people celebrate when you dilute yourself and raise capital. Just go find somebody that's going to give you the money you need. The end.
Okay. The other thing that they said, the China Accelerator, if you get money from rich people, And if you're trying to expand, then the people, the other investors that will invest in your company will not be happy about it. So there are always the things.
So far, all I've heard from this Chinese accelerator fucking shit is just bullshit. Fuck them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
I mean, that's, so wait a minute, let me get this right. They're not going to give you money, and then they're telling you not to raise money from rich, I mean, fuck that.
Hi, I have a question here.
Yes.
Hi Gary, my name is Ritesh, and I have an edtech website.
You have a what?
I have an edtech website.
Yep.
Where we focus on the youth of India.
The youth of India.
Yeah, the people who have no idea what to do after their career, after their college.
Okay.
They have no idea where to go, what to do.
Okay.
So I have a program for the mentors. The mentors come and they give a speech, they chat with the students.
Okay.
So I want to send an invitation to you if you can come and talk to the students on the website.
Virtually?
Virtually,
Cool.
yes.
Send me an email.
So
Gary
send
at
it,
VaynerMedia.
yeah. So I'll send you an email with your login details if that's all right.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
So, just gotta ask.
Hi, Gary. I'm Sunny from Hong Kong.
Hey, Sunny.
And right now, like I work in a startup that build chatbot for financial institution.
Okay.
We have our self-built NLP model that understand Asian language better.
Understood.
And also co-founded a platform that sells surplus food from restaurant at a bargain price. So one of the
A platform that sells surplus food for a bargain price.
Yes.
That's good.
So we want to save food. And
Yep.
one of the challenges we face is that when we talk with restaurant or talk with financial institution, because we are a startup and we do not have a really long track record.
That's
How
right.
can we build up the credit, or how can we let them trust us?
Guys, like, I don't know if anybody's paying attention to this Q&A. It's all the same shit. Like, you can't sell somebody who's not sellable. If somebody says to you, you don't have a track record, I don't trust you, you say thank you and you leave. I mean, like, it's a chicken and egg game. The biggest differentiator, like, you know what this is? This is sales. One of the things I learned when I came into the tech world is like, oh shit, people aren't good at selling. Like, you can't build up a track record if people say no to you. So the answer becomes, you have to find people that say yes. So either you dwell on people's feedback and you don't do it, or you just go knock on every fucking door until you get a couple people to say yes. It's as simple as that. The end. You know, it's interesting, right? But it's very basic. But I think we take way too much credence in individual feedback. Like one person, or you know, how many fintech companies or how many restaurateurs have you gone to that you got no to? The answer is never enough. No matter what you fucking say, not enough, bro. Until you've asked everybody. Then if you've asked everybody and everybody says no, you better come up with some other shit.
Yeah, this is all shit.
Gary?
Hi. Yo.
Hey Gary, I'm Nilesh. Hey, one quick question. Gary, see, on social media, the US is quite mature as a market, right? But the rest of the world is lagging behind. Now, if you were to, market anything on the rest of the world, what would be your strategy?
Help me go a little bit further because I want to understand what you're actually asking.
Yeah, like for example, you said right now you're big at Snapchat.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
I'm big on Snapchat's ad product being underpriced.
Oh, okay.
So for me, I only think about underpriced and overpriced attention.
Oh, okay.
And then I think about scalability because we're all trying to reach people to whatever. Whether you're trying to do a nonprofit or you're trying to sell something, we have something we want to say and something we want to happen.
Right.
It's always better to do that for something that's underpriced instead of overpriced.
Right.
So let's go even deeper. What market are you speaking to specifically?
Well, I'm from the Middle East market.
Yes.
I'm from Dubai.
Yes.
Okay. And the social media uptake is not as high as it would be in US.
Correct.
Okay. And as a strategy, what would you suggest? I know that eventually it's going to kick in. It might take another 2 years. Okay. By the time US has already transitioned from the current space into a different space.
One of the things I always tell entrepreneurs in markets is if you believe, now look, there's a lot of cultural differences, so not everything plays in every culture, but if you believe it's a human trait, not a cultural trait, the greatest thing ever is to be in markets that can watch what's already happened. Look, when I look at the Dubai market, there's a plenty maturity around Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat in that market very quickly. And so influencers or acting like a media company and creating content is very fruitful in that market. It's not as big of a base, but the depth of consumption is very high. So I think for Dubai specifically, from my standpoint, you can absolutely map what you're seeing in the US behaviorally and play it out. All right? Good. You're welcome.
So two questions, I guess, in one. First question, what does the word culture mean to you as someone who's a marketer?
You know, to me, culture is the thing that I most trade on, right? When I think about culture, it's the way people feel, you know, internally, externally. And so it leads to emotion, and emotion leads to action. So for me, when I think about culture, it's the seed and the byproduct that I most think about.
And when you experience other people's cultures,
Yes.
what's the first thing you usually like to experience or embrace?
Listening. When I experience other people's culture, the thing that I most want to experience is whatever the fuck it is. But the thing, you know, when you ask that, it's you know, you're catching me at a good time because I'm here. I want to listen. I want to watch. You know, I do so much talking. I'm always talking. I laugh because everything I've got is based on listening. I talk a lot to create something to listen to. But this is a lot of fun for me because I think watching, and that's why I fell in love with social networks. I'm like, wait a minute, I can watch what people are doing at scale. So I don't have a preference on what I consume when I see a new culture. I just basically take a very passive approach and try to absorb what is cultural, and then I try to find the connection points that are innately human, that are not cultural, that are just tried and true, and then that middle culture layer is what I try to understand contextually, and then I deploy whatever I'm trying to do through that funnel.
Thank you. Have an awesome stay
Thanks,
in Hong
Johnny.
Kong.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, baby.